Hello everyone, Father Steve here in St. Anthony's Church. And I want to take this opportunity to talk to everyone about the Archdiocese reopening the parishes for the public celebration of the Mass. And most of you should have gotten the letter from myself and then the guidelines about reopening the parishes from the Archbishop. Most of you should have gotten that already, but if you didn't, it should be coming soon. And so what I'd like to do today is just explain some of the details of what you might see when you come to Mass this weekend. And in my own mind, like a month or so ago, I was thinking that we were going to perhaps start up where we left off in March, but that's probably not going to happen. So your perception of what's happening in Mass is going to be a little bit different because we have to maintain social distancing, and there's going to be a number of things that are going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to go over a few of those things with you so that you're more comfortable. The first thing is the Archbishop has extended the dispensation for coming to the celebration of the Mass. In other words, if you are a little anxious or nervous about coming back to Mass right now, that's perfectly fine. If, just say for instance, you have an underlying condition, that is what you might call a perfectly legitimate reason for staying at home. And so there are a number of issues that the individual has to decide on their own. That if for some reason you don't feel comfortable coming back to Mass right now, just remember that the dispensation is still in force. So just do what's best for you and do what's safest for you, etc. Just to be more specific here, I'll just read from the Archbishop's guidelines for reopening the churches. And I've already mentioned a couple of these, but it might not hurt just for you to hear them again so that people know that there might be some individuals in the parish community who may want to continue to stay at home. For example, if you are sick or have been recently sick or have an underlying medical condition. Next, you are frail due to advanced age. The next one says you are anxious or nervous about coming back at this time. Or you live with or care with someone who is sick, elderly, or at risk. And so that'll help you kind of figure out a little bit about the possibility of some people in the parish family continuing to stay home and not come to Mass. And I want to emphasize, which I've already emphasized a couple times, that the Archbishop is extending the dispensation for participation and celebration of the Mass indefinitely. And now I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that you might see if you come to Mass this weekend and things that you might experience. One of the things that we do at St. Anthony's and most parishes is there's mingling before and after Mass. The people will talk to each other before Mass starts. There'll be people in the aisles or in the pews visiting with one another after Mass. You may, I'm sure, seen me talking or waving to people prior to Mass starting. And the guideline speaks of people should avoid mingling before and after Mass. And it also says that parishes should not host activities where there are a number of people, like receptions, funeral dinners, etc., etc. And so the big one is the next one, the social distancing part. People are expected to keep their distance of 6 feet unless you are from the same household. So a family of mom, dad, and the kids, or mom and the kids, or dad and the kids, if you usually sit together, that's fine. But people from different households need to social distance by 6 feet. And just for your information, people who may feel uneasy about coming to Mass on Sunday, you're welcome to come to the celebration of the Mass during the week where there may be less people. So you can just keep that in mind. And that's part of the letter that was sent out to you. So if you have any questions, just reread the recommendations or the guidelines here. And needless to say, we're supposed to avoid physical contact. That means no shaking hands, holding hands during the Lord's Prayer, the sign of peace, etc. And one of the guidelines speaks of covering all the holy water fonts and the baptismal font. So when you come to Mass, you'll see that the baptismal font is covered and there isn't any holy water in the fonts, in those little holy water dishes that you see at the entrances of the church. And also, this will seem kind of strange to some, but all the missalettes and hymnals and printed materials have been removed from the pews. And that is mostly because of people handling the books, viruses or whatever that could be on books, etc. So just to be on the safe side, all the books of all the parishes of the Archdiocese are removing the songbooks and hymnals and missalettes. And also, the number of liturgical ministers is going to be drastically reduced. For example, we're not going to be using Mass servers. There's only going to be one lector. The music ministry is going to be kept to a minimum, at least for the time being, until we see how this all works out. Because I know of other parishes that aren't going to have any singing during the Mass. They may have someone playing the piano or the organ and just have instrumentals, but there won't be any singing. And that's partially due to the fact that things can come out of our mouth, etc. I'm not sure what the word is, but you know what I mean. When we're singing or talking, things naturally come out of our mouths. So we'll be keeping singing to a minimum. In regard to receiving the Eucharist, we'll just be receiving under one form. We'll be receiving the host. We will not be using the cup. That's going to be discontinued for the foreseeable future. And for sanitary reasons, Eucharistic ministers may wear a mask, and they should sanitize their hands before and after distribution. That's something that we do regardless, so that's nothing new. As you can see, I just wanted to let you take a look at what the pews are going to look like if you come to Mass this weekend. In regard to the policy of social distancing, every other pew is going to be shut off so that we keep our space. And again, it sounds unusual to us, but we need to follow the social distancing policies because it's for everyone's safety, regardless of what our thoughts are about that. It's intended to help us and keep everybody safe. One other little item, well, it's not little, but it's another item, is on Saturday nights, we live stream the celebration of the Mass, and I'm sure that many of you have watched it. We're still going to continue live streaming the Mass for people, whether you're parishioners or or non-parishioners who want to watch the Mass here from St. Anthony. So just keep in mind that we're still going to live stream, and it'll be on the St. Anthony's website. And if you have any question, feel free to call the office or talk to me personally. And when you come to church on this weekend, if you do, there will be people around to sort of help you figure out where to go and how to get there. Because when you walk into the church, things might appear to be a little bit different. For example, during the celebration of the Mass for live streaming the last couple months, you've noticed that there hasn't been any Mass service, so I just stand behind the altar there for the biggest part of the Mass, and then I'll go sit down for the readings. And what I'm trying to say essentially is that your perception and experience of the Mass might be a little bit different. The Eucharist is the Eucharist, and the grace of God is a wonderful thing, but your experience of the Mass is going to be just a little bit different, because the congregation participation is going to be a little different. We can't, as I said before, we're supposed to avoid mingling before and after Mass. So what I'm going to end with is just ask you to keep in mind that we need to pray for one another, and pray that everyone is very patient, because this is uncharted water for not only the parishioners but for yours truly. I've never been through this before, so we're going to be doing this together, and it's going to be sort of a learning experience, and we're going to see how this works for a while and make adjustments as we go along. So God bless all of you, and if I see you in church, that'll be great. And if you feel more comfortable staying at home for a while, that's okay too. And I'll pray for all of you. And God bless you.